Welcome to Can I Park Here? Brought to you by FindAFashionTruck.com. Nashay and Estrell's mission is to inspire future and existing small business owners. They don't claim to be experts. They're simply trying to figure this all out, just like you.
Welcome to Can I Park Here with your co-hosts, Nashay Snow and
Estrell Riles.
Today we're going to be talking to Abby Rosen from the Uncommon Loon.
Abby's from Minneapolis, Minnesota. She has worked in the retail industry most of her life, and doing so has enabled her to perfect her craft.
Yeah, she bought a really cool school bus, repainted the inside and out. Also, she sells men and women clothing, and she talks about how in less than a year, she was able to get everything up and running right when she graduated school. It's pretty cool.
It's kind of cool because she's an English teacher, and that stable schedule allows her to run the bus in the evenings and on the weekends. And it's actually perfect because since the teachers have summers off, she's able to operate the bus full time during those months.
So we hope you enjoy hearing about her journey during her first year, what her startup costs were, what she's planning to do in the future. We think this is great for people who love vintage, since that's what she sells, and for people who are looking to start up a fashion truck this year.
Yeah, and she did it all for under $10K. And let's find out how she did that. Here we go.
Today, we have Abby Rosen from the Uncommon Loon. Welcome, Abby.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to do the podcast. I'm excited. I love your truck and I love all the stuff in it. It's like you have such a cool style.
Thank you.
Well, we'll start off with just having you tell us a little bit about your background and the story behind your business and your brand.
Sure. I have been working in retail for pretty much my entire working life. And I've worked in a variety of different settings. I worked in a high-end jewelry shop, and I've worked at Ragstock and Plato's Closet. So I really got kind of the whole gamut of what retail can offer people. And that whole time I was searching for my own closet at thrift stores, vintage places, garage, and estate sales, and really kind of honing that craft, so to speak. And once I was graduated from college, I was thinking, what do I want to do next? And a friend of mine actually mentioned that she was moving to Portland to start a book truck. And I thought, that's a really interesting idea. And I hadn't really seen anything like that here in Minnesota. So I pretty much just started Googling around, and I wish that you guys had been available because you guys had the info that I was really looking for at the time, which was how do you even do this? Because, it is still a really new kind of platform. And so it was kind of a lot of trial and error and hours of Googling and looking on Craigslist. But once I found a bus, because that's where the Uncommon Loon is out of, is a mini school bus, it kind of just all started falling into place. And I was really surprised at how quickly it was able to come together, considering, I had no experience starting a business, only shopping. So I was really surprised at how quickly it came together and how easy it was once I more or less knew what I was doing. But the Loon itself is my goal for the Loon was to really share the experience of finding that thing at a thrift shop after hours of digging through, bad polyester and old worn out things, and finding that one item that you're just so proud of. It's so unique and has a history, and, you can wear it with a plain t-shirt and you look stylish, you look put together, and it really kind of can change your whole wardrobe. Because that's really what happened for me, is just finding those pieces that were really special enough that you're not going to find at a mall or, at Target, as much as I love Target, don't get me wrong. Right. But that you're just not going to find anywhere else. But a lot of people I found don't have the time or don't have, the background of knowledge of how to find what's really a good vintage or used piece versus not so good. And so I just basically took the skills that I'd learned just from shopping around and filled the truck up with a bunch of different stuff. So it's been really fun putting that together too, because it's always evolving, because you never know what you're going to find, which is one of, the most fun parts about thrifting, but can be a little overwhelming for people at times. So it's been really fun trying kind of putting together a bus full of, I call them my gems, where it looks like it took you forever, but all you had to do was come to me and pick it out. So
how did you come up with your name?
So the name was honestly one of the hardest parts. Because I'm from Minnesota, I wanted it to have something that was unique to where we're from, because as Minnesotans, we're very proud of the fact that we can survive our winters. And I wanted to, kind of share that kind of state pride. And as bad as it sounds, I ended up, after hours of racking my brain and going on, different thesaurus websites and trying to find just the right phrase, I ended up on the Wikipedia page for Minnesota. And when I was looking through the list of, the state flower, the state tree, and our state bird is the loon. But what I never realized was that the actual name is the common loon. And I was like, well, why couldn't it be the uncommon loon? And that really kind of encapsulated everything that, I really wanted the shop to be. And it just kind of stuck.
And then why did you decide to choose a bus versus a bread truck?
Sure. So the box trucks that were available on Craigslist, which was mostly where I did my looking, they were going to require a lot more renovation and build out. And I was kind of itching to just get started. And what really made the difference for me was that the specific bus that I found, the price was right. It had been fleet maintained as a Head Start preschool bus. So even though it's a 96, I was still fairly confident that it was well taken care of, because a lot of the trucks in our area are sitting kind of out in fields in various levels of disrepair. But what really made the difference was that the bus was already empty. There were no seats in it. So I was just able to come in and say, okay, I need 2 metal racks that I ended up, putting together myself, and my brother helped install, and that was it. So it was really just a matter of how quickly I would be able to turn around the reno, because I started in February, bought the bus in February, and my first event was in July. And I was still finishing college at the time. So I didn't really have a whole lot of time, and wanted to keep the startup costs as low as I could. And it was kind of just the perfect vehicle. So it wasn't even so much, I want a bus over a truck. It was just that one, it was the one. And it just kind of went from there.
Now, do you mind sharing the actual startup costs for your business?
Oh, not at all.
Like the purchase of the truck, permits, the renovation process, just so, everybody else out there can get an idea how to do it once they, get ready.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think my case is fairly unique, because when I've seen other people's figures, they're just objectively a lot higher than mine. The bus itself was a steal at $2,800. So that right off the bat was just, that's most of people's cost is the vehicle itself. So I got very, very fortunate to spend as little as I did on that for the quality of vehicle that I ended up getting. But the other thing for me is purchasing inventory. I get it at such a low cost because of where I'm getting it at, different sale days at thrift stores or garage and estate sales, where you can get things for, multiple items on the dollar. So in order to, my truck has 2 large racks and 1 rack outside. So it's not a ton of inventory to begin with, but I also have a whole storage basement full of things in boxes and, back stock. And I would say altogether renovations, painting, the bus and inventory was under $7,500.
That's not bad.
No, it was not bad at all. And that was one of the things that, I was kind of gritting my teeth and saying, yeah, this is a cute idea and all, but can I really make this happen while not having it be, my full-time job that I'm getting, a salary out of. And I definitely was able to do that. But one of the nice is, a relative term, but I and a couple of friends painted the inside of the bus ourselves. I made the galvanized steel racks that the inventory hangs on. My boyfriend and I, bless his heart, sanded the entire outside of the bus to prepare it for paint.
Oh, wow.
So there was a lot of manual labor that, because I chose to punish myself with it, was able to save a lot of cost that I probably otherwise would have, ended up spending just for convenience sake. So that also really helped me kind of keep costs low.
Now, I know you said you sanded it. Did you all also paint it, or did you just prep it and then send it somewhere else to get painted?
So we just prepped it. We painted the inside ourselves because it was exposed, just galvanized metal. So I was able to do that with just small paints of Rust-Oleum from Home Depot. And that was, it was just as easy as painting a room. And the outside, I took to Mako, and they did the actual painting. But we did all of the sanding, prepping, taping, which is a big one, and getting it ready. So basically all they had to do was take it into the booth and spray it.
And then I see too, instead of choosing to get a wrap, you decided to go with a sign also that says the Uncommon Loon, which also saves a lot of money.
It does. And one of the things, and that was kind of a time issue because I had to wait, God bless our state, until the snow was gone to paint the bus. It actually got painted about 2 weeks before the event. So this year, one of the things that we're doing is getting a graphic put on the side. But yeah, having a sign that I can move, I can, put it over the windshield as an additional graphic. But that really kept costs low. And I was really fortunate to find a local place that was willing to do something like that for a fairly low cost. But again, that was just calling around. My dad actually wanted to help. And since he couldn't help me shop, he decided to help me find someone to make the graphics. So part of it is just, calling around and seeing who's willing to do it for, as much as you're willing to pay. And people are out there and willing to help. That's the one thing I've really found with this business is once you tell people the idea, I get a lot of, I've never heard of that before. And people want to be a part of that. They want to help, someone who's doing something cool and different, help make it happen. So that has been really fortunate too with a lot of the vendors that I've worked with, is just their enthusiasm for the novelty of the ideas, helped.
Yeah. Then they could say, yeah, I was part of putting together a fashion truck.
Exactly.
Now, because of the weather there, do you just do this part-time and then have another full-time job, or do you did last year? Because I guess this will be almost a 1-year anniversary for you soon. Or, was your revenue enough last year for you to just do it full-time?
I wish it was. No, I'm actually an English teacher full-time.
Oh, cool.
But it works. It couldn't be more perfect. I have stable enough hours, and I have summers free. So in the summer, this is my full-time job. And then in, the fall and winter, I have my teaching that I can still get, a regular source of income, because as successful as I was that first year, it's still the first year. So it was a little bit of a slower start, but now this year I'm hoping I can really kind of hit the ground running, as opposed to rushing and still getting everything ready right up until the last moment. Now can be a little bit more strategic, also load my calendar up a lot fuller, because part of it was last year, you never know kind of how much you want to commit in that first year.
Right.
So I kind of chose to start smaller than I maybe would have liked to. And then this year, I'm definitely trying to ramp up the number of events as well as the scale. And part of it is I was only able to register for a certain amount in advance without knowing exactly when I'd be ready. So yeah, this year's definitely going to be stepped up a considerable number of notches.
And I feel like too, now this year, roughly like how much products you'll sell at each event.
Absolutely.
And so, kind of what events are worth going to, how much products to bring with you. So you're a pro, whereas last year it was like figuring it all out.
Right. Well, and for me especially, I started out trying to do half and half men's and women's. And I ran into something that I never would have imagined in a million years, but it makes 100% sense. Men refused to get on the bus. They
Really?
didn't.
I can see that.
And it makes, and it makes total sense. Once it happens, you're like, of course, it's a green bus with dresses hanging out of the windows. It's a little intimidating. And the other thing is, I'm planning on getting a sign that says it's bigger on the inside because it looks very small. It doesn't look like a full grown man would be able to stand up inside of it, but he can if he gives it a shot. But one of the things that I am able to do now is say, well, great. It's kind of a blessing. Now I get to have twice the amount of women's inventory inside, and outside on the rolling rack, I'm going to have graphic tees and hats and button-up shirts and things that while the guys are waiting for their ladies outside, they can have something to browse through. But thinking about that conceptually, when I first started, I would have never thought of that. So just like you said, that first year was so valuable. I mean, I've said so many times, even if I didn't make any money last year, I'm still a million times better off than I was just from having the experience of doing it, a couple times.
Now, you mentioned that you sell vintage items. Can you specify what era of vintage that you focus on? Is it like 80s vintage or like 50s, 60s vintage?
Sure.
Or do you just incorporate all of them?
I try to get a little bit of everything, but primarily what I'm able to find for a cost that isn't prohibitive for me, pretty much mid to late 60s to 80s, early 90s. So a lot of what I have are, the 60s, 70s house dresses with the bright floral patterns, or a lot of 80s graphic tees and, crazy button-ups and different dresses. But I also have some contemporary stuff, because one of the things I think people don't realize is that you can get things that might be, 8 to 10 to 12 years old, which aren't technically considered vintage, but that still have had enough time to come back around into style. Mm-hmm. So, but I have been able to find a couple, vintage dresses from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. But the one tricky part for me is, I know as a plus size woman, I can't buy vintage without being able to try it on. My bust is so small, I don't have a fitting room. So one of the things with vintage that's difficult is making sure that it's just right to be able to charge, what I would consider average vintage pricing. Mm-hmm. I've really wrestled with that because I have a couple pieces that are so special and really true 50s vintage. But having them in the truck for, $50 or more, I wouldn't feel comfortable as a customer paying that amount with it without being able to try it on. So that's kind of something I've had to sort of reconcile, is finding that sort of sweet spot of, it's vintage, but it's still, I feel comfortable, picking it up at a festival as opposed to going to a vintage shop with, 75 dresses that are from the 40s and 50s. So it's just a little bit of a different kind of atmosphere for selling, what some people might consider, quote, true vintage. But one of the things that's great is actually today, one of the reasons what I was doing before this was starting to put items up on my Etsy shop. And that's a great opportunity for those pieces that are true vintage, because I can provide all of the measurements and multiple photos and give people the time to really consider a purchase that's more than just, a graphic tee or a printed tank or a scarf. So that's, been another great avenue for me to feature some of those more vintage gems that I have. And
out of everything that you have, with the dresses and the t-shirts, what do you consider your best seller? Like, what do you pick up that I can just unload this immediately?
Cotton summer dresses. And I was kind of surprised by that because I kind of figured that people would be hesitant to buy a dress just kind of sight unseen. Part of what is really great about having the experience that I do is I tell people how to try things on without having to try them on. So, the trick of checking, at the bust and at the waist and, holding it up and kind of that kind of interaction too with the item, especially with the dress, is really compelling to people. I think people hold it up and they do a twirl and they're like, oh, it's summer. I just had a, frozen lemonade and now I'm going to, shop with local artisans. I need this dress. It would fit in perfectly with this day. Right. So dresses have done really well. But of course, also things like scarves, quick pieces, things that people can throw on, have done well too. But yeah, dresses are definitely my biggest seller at this point.
And I see, I was looking at some of the photos on your Facebook page, and I see, like, even you sell suitcases. So I see this really cute upcycled suitcase that you posted June of last year, which is awesome.
So the funny thing about that's actually my desk. When I go out to these festivals, one of the things that's hard is having a place to put bags or, it's the things you don't really think about. Or if I need to re-tag an item. So I just throw everything in that suitcase and put it on a craft table, and it's my little desk. But you better believe if somebody offered me the right price for that, they could take it home. It's already got a handle. It's ready to go.
No, yeah, it looks awesome. I'm completely addicted to floral. So I just love how you have, like, it has the blue and then the floral pattern on the outside. So it's really cute. So for those of you listening, definitely go to her Facebook page and check it out. I wanted to ask you a question. You said that you were starting to put some items onto your Etsy page. Mm-hmm. Now, are you going to use the Etsy app when you're out just to make sure that, like, what's on the Etsy page is still available, since, someone could, I guess, buy something while technically you're out at the event? Because a lot of fashion truck owners run into that where they're trying to figure out how to sync their online inventory and their truck inventory.
Yeah, one of the things, the way I'm approaching Etsy, because it is a time commitment in and of itself to take the pictures and do the description and the tags and to do really everything justice, I'm kind of creating a capsule collection just for my Etsy. So those items wouldn't actually be on the truck and part of it is that the things I've chosen to go on my Etsy are either things that would be sold as is, for, things like a small tear or things like that, but that overall are still excellent vintage condition. So those things would just kind of be in their own little cabinet, and they wouldn't actually come with me on the road. And I'm fortunate that I, am a shopping addict. Business owner, and have lots of backstock so that I'm not, I don't have to choose between having great inventory on the truck and having special pieces on the Etsy. I can kind of have them be their own separate worlds, so to speak.
Oh, no. Yeah, that makes it easier.
Yeah.
Now, also, what are some of your tactics with collaborating with local businesses? Because I didn't know if in your state they're starting to get used to fashion trucks. So are you able to park on, I guess, in different areas and in different lots? Or are you still trying to figure out, besides, let's say craft events or, food truck events, but, are you still trying to figure out, like, where you can park when you're just going out alone and not at a major event?
Yeah, it's still a bit of a process of trial and error. And my situation's a little different than others because I'm the only truck in the Twin Cities that's selling used secondhand inventory. So for trucks that sell new merchandise, the Fashion Mobile was the first in the state, and they worked with the city of St. Paul to create a parking permit so that they could park in St. Paul on the street and sell just like a food truck would sell. Unfortunately, as part of that provision, they listed that it has to be new merchandise. So I'm unfortunately not able to just, at this moment, just park on the street and sell whenever I'd like. But I am able to park on private property. So I've been talking to a couple of small businesses in the area about, creating an event where I come and park and, they would get some of that auxiliary business. We can, kind of help each other out in that way. And that's still in the works. But last year we actually did the first fashion truck meetup event, and we just rented a lot in Minneapolis. And each of us contributed to the cost of renting that lot for the 4 hours that we were there. And then we were able to set up and do whatever we'd like during that time. So it's still kind of developing. It's obviously not as accessible as I'd like it to be, but there are definitely ways to make it work if you're willing to put yourself out there and call places in particular that you may not think of. I'm currently talking to a bookstore as well as a salon. Even though, the first thought might be another boutique, it's actually, I've had better luck kind of opening up the realm of kind of what I would consider, because then there's no competition either. Mm-hmm. Then it's, I'm bringing this to the party, you're bringing this, and we can help each other as opposed to feeling like there might be some competition. But the great thing about our trucks is that we all do such different things. So there really wasn't that sense. I mean, even though we were all together, technically, I guess, competing for customers, there was no sense of that animosity or competitiveness because we each have our own kind of corner of the market. So it was really fun and collaborative. I know this year we're talking about doing another and are hoping to do a little bit more on the publicity, social media side to just get the word out, because these kind of events didn't exist before. So we have to do, some of the front end work of getting it out there and really getting people to realize that this is something that exists now.
What PO point of sale systems do you use?
So I use Square exclusively, and it's been really nice for the volume of sales that I end up doing. And especially because now it's compatible with my phone. It's really quick and easy. And I can also pass it off, to if I have a friend there with me or my mom, and can say, look, all they have to do is swipe. It's really easy to follow. I know one of the things that people struggle with when looking for a point of sale system is the deposit schedule, how frequently they deposit things, as well as the fees that they charge. But I found both to be really reasonable. So I've been super happy with them.
Yeah, I've used Square a ton for various events. Yeah, I found it really easy interface. It's simple. I think I like Squarespace and PayPal, but I started with Square, so I think I have just a love for that because I've been using it the longest.
Yeah, and PayPal I'm going to start getting kind of more into the realm of now that I have the Etsy opening soon. But I've used them as a customer, for a very long time and trust them. So I assume that that'll be a good one to go to too. The nice thing about Square is that, I had 3 events last year, and I can still go back today and view my entire sales history, the times that the transactions were made with, really easy to use graphs and all those things. I mean, I was just doing my sales and use tax the other day, and was able, it took me 5 minutes because the Square is so easy to, it keeps that information for you and in such an easy way to look at it. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, I love it. Now, what are some of the lessons learned as regards to just being a small business owner now that you're kind of coming up on like your first full year of operating? What are some things that you would pass on to others?
So one of the things is actually one of the things I mentioned earlier, which is you can't be afraid to ask questions. Because for me, I'm only 25. I was only 23 when I started. And so it was kind of hard at first. I felt inexperienced and I felt like everyone could tell how inexperienced I was. And it kept me from asking questions because I didn't want to appear like I didn't know what I was doing. And what ended up happening is, luckily nothing bad came of it, but, I went into the bank to set up my business accounts and I ended up with, 4 accounts for some reason because I wasn't asking the questions that I needed to ask. And so I ended up having to kind of go back and restructure after the fact. Whereas if I had, not been afraid to just say, hey, are you sure that I need 4 of these?
Right.
I could have saved myself some trouble. But and also, finding a network. And that's why I think what you guys do is so wonderful and invaluable, because it really didn't exist, a year ago when I was doing this, that just being able to message someone else and say, hey, how are your permits going, or what events are you doing, has been great, because since the information up until recently has been so sparse, you really kind of can feel like you're doing it all on your own, especially because I am my only employee. So having that network and being able to turn to someone else and be like, hey, did your truck break down last week? How much did it cost for you to fix it? Luckily I haven't had that issue yet. But the last thing I learned was really just having your contingency plans, expecting the bus to not start when you go to start it after 3 months of it sitting there, and, expecting the racks to shake when you drive so that when it happens, you don't get terrified. It's just, when you do something that hasn't really been done before, is kind of in the first wave of existence, you got to be prepared for things that you're just not prepared for. But that's why I've been so fortunate to have, the support of my family and friends and, the other fashion truckers in Minnesota, because without them, I definitely would not be here at year 1. I would probably be sitting in the middle of an unpainted bus weeping.
Yeah. And for all those listening too, we just started a private Facebook group, and it's a great way for you to network with other fashion trucks. So if you do run into any issues, you could just throw your questions out there, and usually somebody will come back with some different tips, advice, resources, you name it.
Yeah, and especially because I think each of us had to fight so hard for the information we did get. I know I, have had different people email me about my business, and I'm just so excited to talk about it, because there is that pride of, each of us started this from the ground up. It's very much a labor of love that we all have to go through. And so everyone, is really willing to share. It's not this kind of cutthroat sort of environment. Everyone's really open and willing to help, which has been really nice to see.
Yeah. Do you do private parties, or do you just stick to local truck events?
I do. I haven't actually had one yet. So if anyone's out there in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area.
Nice plug.
Thank you. Because that's the one thing that I really feel like if I was, having a birthday or a bachelorette party, or just wanted some new clothes, having, a truck be able to drive up into my driveway and, can shop for a couple of hours. It's something a little different. And that I think people are now starting to get in their minds as a possibility. So I'm hoping to really kind of step that up. And I've been super fortunate. Chinook Book, which I don't know if you guys have where you are, it's a collection of businesses that are helping keep the world a greener place, that focus on sustainability or recycling, reusing things. And they actually reached out to me with an opportunity to provide a coupon in their book for the next year, as well as on their website and their app. And my offer is focusing on private parties. So it'd be free to rent and with a discount for the whole bus while the party is going. So that's really one of the things I'm hoping to ramp up in the next year, is getting a number of those parties on the books, because I think it would be fun, business aside. Yeah. I just think I love the personal styling and the making those relationships and finding the perfect piece for people. And I think that's one of the really great things that a private party can afford you that a festival just can't, just because you don't have the time and the luxury of just focusing on, just a couple people at a time. So that's something I'm really excited for in the year ahead.
And how would you actually structure the private party? Would they have to book a certain number of people in advance in order for you to accept it? Or will there be like a location, like a mileage limit? Like, how would that work for you?
Sure. So for me, I'm pretty open because I do have the luxury of time this summer and the metro area is so large. I'd like to keep it within the Minneapolis, St. Paul metro area, probably, something like a 25, 30 mile limit. But what I would love to do is have it blocked out in about 2-hour to 3-hour windows. And my hope is to get at least 6 people per party, but once you tell your friends that you're having a fashion truck show up to your house, I don't think it should be too hard to find 5 more friends that would be willing to show up. And the nice thing is, the bus can fit about 10 people as a tight squeeze. It's only a mini bus. So it would actually, whereas some people with the larger, step vans or full-size buses or things like that might be hesitant to do smaller parties. I'm not really as concerned about that because it just gives people more elbow room to look around. So yeah, 6-person minimum is sort of what I'm shooting for, but I'm really open since I haven't done it yet. It's still, kind of in beta. So I'm willing to try, whatever it takes to get people on the bus is what I'm willing to do. And hopefully, I'm really fortunate to live near a really cool donut shop. And, would like to provide, bring a box of donuts and everyone can just, snack and browse and have a good time. And I would also provide an extra discount or, a portion of the sales as credit for the host. So whoever, gets the whole thing together would get a little something extra out of the deal for their time and effort as well.
Nice.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I definitely encourage the audience to go check out your website and your different social networking links because I love your brand. It looks like you really took the time to figure out what type of style you wanted. And I know you said last year you really didn't have that much time, but it came together because I'm looking at your website now. So I love that you actually have pictures of your truck. You see a little bit of the merchandise. I love the logo. And then you even have kind of pictures of the tags near the Who We Are section. And even on your Facebook, you have the Uncommon Loon and then kind of vintage flowers going around it. How did that all come about? I remember you in the beginning saying, I think someone in your family helped you get a designer, but I'm just curious about your process for just putting your website, maybe business cards, tags, logo, and all of that good stuff together.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, that's the part that I thought that I would dislike the most. And I've actually ended up enjoying one of the most of having the truck in general. I kind of started very bare bones. I got some business cards and the basic website down just so that people could find me, but kind of let the brand evolve over this past year. So actually the logo that you're looking at now and the website you're looking at now are new as of about 4 days ago.
Oh,
so, really? Yes. Because I kind of keep revisiting. And every time I go back to the website or go back to the logo, I kind of am looking at it as, okay, that's where the loon was. Now, where is the loon now? And I think what I have now is going to be able to really last me for a while because I have, as we talked about, the benefit of hindsight of saying, this is really what we're about. And I actually, the first logo that I had was just an idea that came to me with, a picture of a loon wearing, glasses and a scarf, and he's got his, polka dot pattern on. And that I actually did myself. And it lasted me a while. I said, hey, it's not the worst thing that I've ever made. Why don't we make some business cards with that? So that I actually ended up just making myself. I was going to work with someone else on the logo and was actually still in talks with them as of a couple of weeks ago. And he's an incredibly talented guy, has a degree in graphic design. But what I really found is, I know my brand better than anybody else. And so that logo I actually put together as well. And it just really spoke to me. It really felt authentic as to what the loon represents. So It's been a lot of fun. And I didn't think it would be something that I would enjoy, let alone be any good at, but has actually been a lot of fun. My mom is a big design person, and I think I got that part of the gene from her. So it's just been a ton of fun putting the whole look together, because it really does have a personality of its own that's different from my personality. I kind of thought, oh, it's just going to be stuff that I like, kind of go from there. And while I do like it, I really do feel like it's kind of its own monster, so to speak, and has its own qualities. Like a person, I'm getting to know it, as time goes on. So that's kind of how I look at my branding.
Now, we are coming to the end of the interview, but we have some questions to ask you and what we're calling our lightning round.
Okay.
So first question, do you have a favorite podcast or blog? And if so, what is it?
I do. It's actually one that my friends told me about. It's Radio Lab. They're great. Check them out.
If you could have any celebrity, entertainer, model, mentor, you name it, visit your mobile boutique, who would it be?
I think it would have to be Chloe Sevigny, and I'm probably totally butchering her name, but she has just got kind of a funky style that's always changing. She kind of looks like she got dressed in the dark, but like it works for her. Because one of the things that I've found in my life is, my best outfits come when I'm not overthinking them. And that's how I love to dress people on the truck too. I'm like, you like that pattern? Let's go from there. And she kind of really has that sort of sensibility about her.
What do you like to do in your free time just to wind down, just de-stress after getting off of work?
Netflix binging, definitely. I have my cat that I love and spend way too much time, money, and attention on. And the English teacher in me, I love a good book. I love watching movies based on books or TV shows. So all of those good things.
Oh, any favorite books you recommend for the audience out there?
Let's see. My favorite author is Chuck Palahniuk, who wrote Fight Club. I don't know that I'd recommend. I always hesitate to recommend him because people will think that I'm a crazy person. Not entirely untrue, but maybe not the most flattering characteristic. But if you like weird, Chuck Palahniuk's the way to go.
I love weird.
Me too. It's the best.
Love it.
And then last question for the lightning round, and then we'll get to just the final question for the night. Android or iPhone, and what's your favorite app?
Ooh, Android for sure. My favorite app has honestly got to be my Etsy app. Hopefully my boyfriend is not listening to this, but I love fantasy engagement ring shopping. I'll say it. But there's just so much that you can find. And I love window shopping. So that's got to be my favorite at the moment.
So the final question is, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail?
I love that quote also, and question. Great question. I would love to open a boutique that is staffed by my students. I work in downtown St. Paul with what people would call at-risk youth, but I hate that term because they're just my beautiful cherubs. So that's how I think of them. But they are so creative and much hipper and cooler than I am, evidenced by the fact that I just said hipper. And they just have a great eye. I see what they wear all the time, and I get jealous and inspired, and I love it. And I would love to open a brick and mortar that they could be a part of, because they've really inspired me in my business in a lot of ways. So I'd love to be able to give that back to them as well.
I love that idea.
Where can the audience find you? Please give any website, social networking sites, events, you name it, anything you want the audience to know. Please let them know about it.
Sure. The easiest way to find us is theuncommonloon.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. Our handle is Uncommon Loon MN. And our new Etsy shop coming soon will be The Uncommon Loon. So any of those places are great to find us, and like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, all those good things. And we are so excited to meet you.
Yeah, and we'll make sure all of those links are included in the show notes, and even all the links that were mentioned during this episode, like the Chinook book. Oh, I said that right.
Yes.
I was like, I thought I would mess up the Chinook.
Now, can you spell it?
Yes, only because I Googled it and I'm looking at it right now.
Love it.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for agreeing to be on this show. I know it's going to be really helpful to future boutique owners and even people who just love shopping and hearing about like boutiques in general. I think we'll love your story. So thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Another great episode. It's just amazing what people can do in a year. I tell you, Abby, she was like determined and she got it done. And I just love her. Her brand is just very fun and funky. So I know she's going to do great this summer.
Yeah, and it's inspiring how she was going to school, trying to finish college, all while working to finish up the boutique at the same time. So that determination, I have to give it up to her. It was great. And she pulled it off perfectly.
Absolutely. And I do think this is a great option for school teachers because school teachers are off 3-4 months, some school teachers during the summer. So it's a great, fun way to earn some extra income and maybe do what you love if you're into retail. So school teachers out there, maybe think about doing this next year.
Absolutely. And guys, don't forget, we have a new feature at the website called Ask FFT. If you go to starterfashiontruck.com under the podcast section, there is a little button that you can push to record a question that we will read and answer live during the podcast. So go ahead. Ask FFT and we will answer you. Anything you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to the episodes that you've heard, but if you have any questions regarding how to start a fashion truck, the fashion industry, or just anything under the sun, feel free to leave us a question. But make sure that it is under 2 minutes.
Absolutely. And you can find us, the directory at findafashiontruck.com. You can find show notes at startafashiontruck.com. Also, our blog is located there. And on social media, you can find us by just typing in FFT_official_ on IG and on Twitter. So we hope to hear from you and love to hear your comments and have a great day.
Bye.